Right, ladies. It is fabulous to see some of y'all this morning. Welcome to the Radiant Body. I am super, super excited to be here. I'm like, feeling like it could just jump around a little bit here. I did a little bit of that before, but I'm really excited to be with you today, to be gathering with you this morning. It's going to be a really beautiful morning of story, of learning, of teaching, of practicing. I think you're really gonna love it. I'm really gonna love it. I did a practice run with my boyfriend last night and he cried. So I feel like that's just like a good a good telltale sign of like it's gonna get sweet, it's gonna get good. And I'm just very excited to see some of you here. Oh, what's up, Cass? All right, ladies, we'll just take a moment to drop in here. So just kind of finding yourself in a little bit more comfortable position than you already are in, finding yourself maybe adjusting a little bit, letting your spine grow nice and tall here for a moment. And just taking a couple of breaths. Finding that your eyes can relax down just a little bit further. Feeling yourself grounded into your seat. Feeling yourself kind of heavy there on the floor or on the chair that you're in. Beautiful. Taking a big breath in here. Letting that breath go. All right, ladies. Again, welcome to the Radiant Body. I'm super excited to be here with all of you. This should be sharing my screen here. Yeah, sharing my screen. Maybe Jenna Palmville, could you give me a little thumbs up if you can see my screen? Right on, baby. All right, ladies. So, can we get this out there? Minus. All right, very good. So, ladies, the Radiant Body, I'm very excited to share what I've got in store with you today. I'm just going to come in here, oopsies, and give you a little agenda outline. First, why the Radiant Body? Like, why am I here sharing this information with you? Where does this information come from within my own experience? Then we'll get into the feminine process. So, this key that I've kind of been hinting at as I've been marketing this class, this feminine key to growth, to healing, to expansion in all areas. And also the sticky points where I see women, including myself in the past, been stuck or have gotten stuck. We'll go through how we can use this key on every level, not just for the body, but every level of growth, mental, emotional, energetic, spiritual. And I'm going to give the example of how we move through those levels with the body by giving you examples of how we move through Radiance Revealed. So that 7-week program that I run that lots of you are familiar with, some of you that might be something new. But we'll go through an example of how we use the body on every level there. And then at the end, we'll go through the tool to start implementing immediately so that you can start to practice this key right away. I am going to pop myself on here. All right, ladies. So why the Radiant Body? The Radiant Body for me is a culmination of my life. It's the culmination of my life's work. It's a culmination of the experiences that I've had in life. And it starts in my childhood. Of course, it starts where I grew up, right? I grew up on a farm in a rural area, like 17 acres of land. And I'm actually curious because I feel like no matter where we grow up, like we get benefits and we also get challenges from where we grow up. So I'm curious if y'all would hop in the chat for a second and just pop in there, like what kind of place did you grow up? And not like, oh, I grew up in Northfield, Minnesota. Like, did you grow up in a city? Did you grow up in a high rise? Did you grow up in an apartment building? Did you grow up on a hobby farm, on a cattle farm? I met a girl on a train a couple of days ago. She has been living on 20,000 acres of land in Montana. I was like, that's fucking crazy. Yes. So just pop in that chat. Where did you grow up? So Joanne, growing up in a small town in the city. Yes, the small town vibes, Gabby. Kieran, the suburb. Wow, Jenna Palmerville. I didn't know you grew up on dirt roads. Suburbs, small town USA, Miss Jade. Oh, Cass, the small town in Idaho. Amy Conti, suburb, 25 minutes from Manhattan, small town MN, Kaylin the Burbs. Absolutely. So I feel like we can all relate on the fact that no matter where we grow up, we get gifts from where we grow up. So maybe like if you grew up in the city, or if you grew up near Manhattan, if you grew up in the suburbs, maybe you're like well socialized, like you got to have a lot of friends as a young person. You really got to play in your neighborhood, maybe. Um, or maybe you got exposed to like a lot of different cultures in the city that you grew up in. But maybe if you grew up in that city setting, maybe your system was really used to a lot of chaos, and maybe that impacts you down the road. Or for those of us who grew up in a little bit more rural areas, that solitude, like I can advocate for myself, that solitude for me was incredible. I got to be so immersed in nature. I got to be so connected with the marshland that my home was on, the forest that my home was on. My intuitive gifts started developing at an extremely young age because I got to spend so much time alone in the woods, right? Like my clairaudience, that inner hearing that allows me now to go out and like ask trees questions and hear them respond to me, like incredible gifts that I was blessed with because of where I grew up with. But also wherever we're raised, it's also going to have its own challenges. So for me, with that rural space, yes, I got to be out in the woods exploring by myself or with my siblings, but I was also by myself a ton. I was alone all the time as a young person. And by the age of 5, I had developed like a bit of existentialism. I was a 5-year old that was having panic attacks multiple times a month. And that continued until I was 20 years old. Totally undiagnosed panic disorder that I was trying to deal with as a 5-year old. And so that's going to definitely be a theme throughout this, that anything we experience in life, it's going to have its benefits, its gifts, and it's also going to have its challenges, right? Of course. So grew up on that farm, rural space, got to have that incredible experience of being in the woods, also the challenge of being alone, of being in isolation, of not having a ton of community, not having a ton of socialization necessarily. Also had the gift of watching my mother, who is either on this call or she'll be watching the recording. Love you, Mama. Thank you. Um, got to watch my mom build a 6-figure coaching and yoga business. Like, how incredible as an entrepreneur who is in those realms. I got to watch my mom build that 6-figure business, which was incredible, right? The benefit, but also the challenge of that. I watched my mom push herself into stage 4 adrenal fatigue. If you're familiar with the adrenals, that's the glands of your hormonal system that pump out your stress hormone, your cortisol. My mom built this incredible, incredible business serving thousands of people. But at the same time, she pushed her body so far that her stress glands were like totally taxed. Like they had like given everything they had. Her hormonal system was in total dysfunction, right? For those of us who experience that, or women that experience adrenal fatigue, your hormones are going to be fucked. Your cycle is going to be whacked. You're going to go into menopause in a very unfortunate way. You're going to have extreme hot flashes for years. You're going to struggle with weight gain, your skin, your all of your hormonal system, your endocrine system, which runs the system of your entire body, right? Your endocrine system is like the messenger system that signals all the rest of your bodily systems get fucked, right? So I watched my mom build this 6-figure business, which was so inspiring, but at the same time, watched her push herself into that stage 4 adrenal fatigue. Super challenging for myself as a young person. Growing up on that farm, what a gift, loved it, but also like awkward. I'm curious if any of you who grew up small town vibes or rural vibes, like you girl didn't get a lot of socialization with other kids, with other families. And so I was definitely a bit awkward, kind of quiet, kind of just quirky though. And moving into high school, that quietness just kind of like settled in, that awkwardness just kind of settled in. Was that my authentic self? I'd say probably not, given how I feel authentic in myself now. But I think a lot of us can also agree that socially, we're not socially, I would say maybe we are inclined to become a bit more quiet as women, to become a bit more reserved as women, right? And so I was definitely kind of holding that flag, holding that totem of quiet, a little awkward, a little just like hiding behind the scenes. Um, there was parts of me that were expanding out of that, but when I was 16, definitely one of the most challenging experiences of my life came on in. So when I was 16, my parents told us that they were getting a divorce. I know lots of you can probably relate to that as well, right? I think it's like a 50% of all children have an experience of their parents getting divorced. And something that was so impactful that I heard many years after this had happened was that aside from the death of a family member, for children, the separation of parents through divorce is the most traumatic thing that a child can experience. That was like so relieving for me to hear because of only years after did I realize how impactful that time was for me. Grab some water, some tea if you've got them. Keep it hydrated, baby. The most challenging piece of that experience for me of the huge surprise of my parents separating, because I know some of you or some families are like, oh yeah, that was coming in hot for years. For my family, it was like an extreme surprise. Like, wouldn't have thought it for, ever. My parents were married for 23 years. They had built this incredible home. They had had like 90 foster children, like incredible, beautiful family. Um, and when they told us, I remember looking around the room and like my little brother had started tearing. My older sister was crying. My younger sister wasn't crying yet, but she cried later. And I felt myself at 16 years old just go kind of like ice cold in my body and go hard in my posture. And I remember my parents coming around and trying to give us hugs, and I was like rigid. And from that moment, I remember having the thought of like, I will go through this angry, and like, I will not be sad. I will not be hurt. I will not be soft at all. I'm going to be angry. And that's exactly what happened. I started to recede even further socially into a shell of rigidity and anger. And that lasted for a long, long time for me. So definitely struggled for those next 2 years, right? Junior and senior year of high school. We moved out of the house that I was in love with, that farmhouse, on my 17th birthday. So that morning of my 17th birthday, moving out of that home. Um, those next 2 years were definitely a challenge. I felt confused all the time. I felt super ungrounded, right? I was like, I couldn't remember like whose day is whose. And I was always getting pissed off at my parents, and like saw my dad cry one time, which was horrible. But other than that, I also never saw any adult in my life cry still at that point. Left for college, and I bet some of you can experience this too, or have experienced this too, but going off to college was like, whoa, like new space, new context, new people. People don't know who I am. It was like this chance for me to kind of be somebody else. And I started to become somebody else. I started to become more confident. I started to socialize in different ways. I started to connect with girlfriends in deeper ways. Started to become a little bit goofier, a bit lighter. And that felt so, so good. And so I really felt myself, even though I hadn't necessarily grieved that experience of my parents' separation, I felt myself kind of coming into a new opportunity to expand, right? A new opportunity to like rewrite who I am, to re-show up in a different way. And that ball was getting rolling. It was feeling good. I was with my volleyball team. I had like very little socialization, especially in those first 2 years aside from my team. I'm sure that y'all in college sports can vibe with that. Yeah, I'm seeing some nods on that. So I met my three best friends, all lived in the same dorm, just like hilarious girls, right? We just all vibed immediately starting off in the preseason. Freshman year was a ball. Sophomore year, we moved in together. And although I was like more open, more goofy, more playful, I was going out with the team, I still didn't really have like a voice or like a stance or a posture that was like confident and powerful. I kind of was like, all right, I'm with the team. Like I'm getting pulled around by the group, but I didn't have much of like a personal power to me. And that reared its head in the middle of my sophomore year. So again, I was living with my three best friends, my only three friends, truly. Like I really had these three women. We lived in this house together. And one night I came home and they wouldn't speak to me. And I was like, what is going on? And over the next couple of hours, I learned that I had accidentally talked to another friend in a biology class, and I had been talking about how my one roommate liked this guy on the soccer team. And without me knowing it, the guy across the table from us, one of our lab partners, was also on the soccer team. And then ended up like, oh, yo, dude, this girl likes you. This girl likes you. And coming home, my three roommates were like literally upstairs and they were like, let's never talk to her again. Let's make her feel like no one in this house can even see her. Said that. Let's make her feel like no one in this house can see her. And it was terrifying. I had felt like after my, parents' experience in high school, coming into college, I was like, wow, like I can do this. I'm part of a group. I have friends. And that feeling of my sisters, right? My girlfriends breaking was terrifying. I remember going out into the garage and calling my older sister. And for the first time in my life, like sobbing, crying, like out of my body, sounds that I had never heard myself make before crying. And after that, for the next several months, it's it's not a blur, but it's just the same image of me sitting in my bedroom, super deep in a depression, right? Not really eating anything, eating ground beef and frozen broccoli. Like that's what I was sustained on, right? Like health totally declining, social health totally declining, emotional health totally tanking, all because I didn't have the spine to have a conversation with these women, to be like, yo, I'm sorry. Yo, I didn't mean this. Yo, can we talk about this? I didn't have the strength or the tools or the skills, the practice skills to advocate for myself in that time. It was a horrible time. It was a very sick time for me on many levels of health, not just the body, right? Very ill on all levels. And I came out of it, as we do, right? My younger sister moved in with me. God bless her. Love you, Meg. My mom was like, you need to fucking eat food. Like, you need to eat. Your hormones are fucked. You got to eat, baby girl. And so slowly I found people. I found new women in my life. Meg brought a lot of beautiful women into my life, and we started to form around each other in a new group that was really loving and really soft and really embracing of each other, really accepting of each other. And so the next 3 years after my sophomore year, I took 3 more years to graduate college. And it was fucking great. Like I had a great time socially. But in that same vein, though, I was still not anchored. I wasn't fully myself, right? I didn't still have that voice. I didn't know how to claim what I wanted. I didn't know how to communicate what I needed or what I didn't need, right? My yes wasn't strong, but my no was also weak. And that manifested itself in different ways at that point. I have these strong girls, but I start having sexual assault experiences with men, right? That no is super weak. That spine is really soft. Its very tendency is to collapse. Um, that's an experience I know that most women can relate with as well. Uh, I also didn't have the voice to pursue what I wanted with like fucking fire, right? I came into school and I was like, I'm going to pursue something that makes me money and that's easy. And that ended up being accounting for me. Odd for those of you that only know me now. But yes, I worked as an accountant. I did not fit in very well there. Um, but that time was overall, it was a beautiful time for me, those last 3 years of school. And that really was anchored by this group of female friends that I had. Now, already in this story, there's these experiences and examples of moments of breaking and the challenge that comes from that, but also the beauty that comes from that, right? Like finding a sense of self, finding new friends after breaking with old friends, even though I had the challenge of really declining in health. I was not prepared for another breaking, as often we're not, but it happens, right? Girl, I feel you. I cried too. The breakings happen regardless of if we're ready, and the breakings, I don't believe ever stop happening, right? I will never work with you I will never work with women and tell you the work we're doing, you're never going to struggle with XYZ again. You're never going to be challenged with XYZ again. You're never going to come across these issues again, because that's just not true, right? Like there's external circumstances that happen in our lives that will break us again, that will crack us again. And for me, that happened after breaking up with a man post graduation that was sick, right? He was an addict. He was pretty deeply troubled emotionally. I loved the fuck out of him. Oh my God. I loved him so much. The first time I saw him, I always remembered it was like hearing cymbals in my head, like just from seeing him. I was so in love with this man, but he was so ill. So after 2 years, I broke up with him. And that in and itself, of course, that's the breaking, but the real breaking came a few months later when I learned that my two of my best friends, my two roommates, both had been sexual with my ex-boyfriend in the weeks and months after we had separated. And I found myself back in that moment of like brokenness with women, brokenness with sisters, brokenness in this safe haven that I had found in my last 3 years of school, right? The most wonderful, incredible, beautiful, safe, expansive women. It broke again, and I was destroyed. Like I was totally crushed. And yet it was different than that first breaking in college. I I still locked myself in my room. I did. I was alone for months. They tried to have an intervention with a local shaman that came into our house and tried to like bring me out and be like, what is it? And I was like, what is it? I hate you, motherfucker. Just kidding, I didn't say that. But I was like, no, like so, so guarded I became against these women, so avoidant I became against these women. But the difference this time was that my health fucking skyrocketed. I locked myself in my room, and instead of eating frozen broccoli and beef, I dove into what a lot of you know about me now, the power of intuitive eating. I became excellent with my food. I read voraciously. I studied so much philosophy, so much yoga, so much quantum. I studied science. I studied the art. I totally healed my hormonal system. I healed this crazy skin rash that was just coming from the illness in my gut, right? Like hands, feet, face, rash everywhere. I totally healed my inner world. I healed so much of my emotional pain that was starting to cycle, or at least I thought I did. I mentally just churned through it. And within this time, I also had the first experience that started the work that I do now and started the work that I'm going to be sharing with you today in the Radiant Body. And that is my first experience of true emotional release. I walked into a meditation center with a handful of blocks down the street from my house. And without planning on it at all, I ended up laying on the floor as this man who was like in his 70s facilitated for the entire group that was there a trauma release breath work. I was 23 years old at the time. And for the first time since I was 16, so 17 years later, pardon me, 7 years later, for the first time, I cried about my parents' divorce. And it wasn't just like, oh, some tears. I call this now little kid crying. I had my first little kid cry about my parents' divorce. And when I say little kid cry, that's like I haven't heard anyone cry like this that's over the age of 5. Like truly having a little kid cry about my parents' divorce for the first time, first tears shed. And it was in that experience and the freedom, the relief that I felt afterwards that I realized, holy shit, this is what I've been missing. And this is what the adults in my life that I have seen experience trauma and cycle through patterns of lack of fulfillment. This is what all the adults in my life are missing too. It's this raw emotional release, this emotional expression. And this experience was the center and the starting point of the work that I do now and the keys that I'm going to be sharing with you in the Radiant Body. So I'm just going to pull up once more. All right. This here. This here we begin presentation. All right, babes. Thank you so much for listening so beautifully to my story and why I am here now sharing the keys that I'll be sharing in the Radiant Body. So in the Radiant Body, we're going to be learning the feminine key that unlocks more on every level without getting stuck in your mind. That's really key piece at the end, without getting stuck in your mind. As an intelligent woman, and as many of you, not all of you, I know all of you, I know you're all intelligent women. That intelligence is beautiful, but it does bring with it the challenge of being stuck in the mind. So in the Radiant Body, we're going to be coming through that feminine key that unlocks more on all levels. And I can say that confidently because of the women that I've been able to work with using these keys. So again, just an overview of that story with me and the body. Grew up in that idyllic childhood, but with undiagnosed panic attacks. Watched my mom build a six-figure yoga and coaching business right into stage 4 adrenal fatigue. Parents divorced at 16. Me, not a single tear shed, full on anger. That low point in college, no friends, tanked health, zero passion, and no voice. And then at 23 years old, that first experience of my body based release that prompted the work that I do now. So, why do I do this work, ladies? As a child, I watched the adults in my life in what I would call emotional constipation. And as an adult, because of my mother, really, because of the women that I've been able to work with in retreat settings, co hosting retreats with my mom, I've watched the older women that I worked with study yoga and traditional coaching tools for decades, and yet they have extremely low satisfaction in things like sex and relationships, career, even. And they're not experiencing true freedom from trauma patterns. And so I do this work because I needed to end this pattern of emotional constipation for myself, but I also needed to help the women I worked with reconnect to true deep healing and what I keep calling spice. I needed to help these women find more spice in their life. I realized in my training, right? Like my mother, God fucking love her. I got to take two thousands of dollars, like a cumulative $10,000 worth of training programs from my mother in yoga and traditional coaching. And because of that, I got to see the benefits, but also see that these modalities, these philosophies have been pioneered and carried down predominantly by men. And because of that, I see that they miss the feminine key of emotional expression. And I'm not talking emotional expression like, I'm sad or like this is feeling awkward. I am going to go deep into what this truly means to emotionally express as a woman. Now, before we get into that, we need to understand two things. We need to understand the healthy cycle of emotions, and we need to understand the cycle of emotional block. Now, the healthy cycle of emotions, this is an image here that I've created just out of coaching women now for 3 years. So, the healthy cycle of emotions, it starts here at the top, right? Something happens out there. Out there is in outside your body. So maybe you are at the gas station and the cashier is like, oh my gosh, like you have such beautiful hair. I love it so much. Your body takes that in and is impacted. So in this example, maybe your body takes that in and you feel like warm or like your heart feels good, right? You have that sensation inside your body. Now, in the healthy cycle of emotion, your body responds with some expression of the impact that that made on you. So maybe in this example, you smile or your eyes get bright and you're like, wow, thank you. And then in this healthy cycle, your body has cleared the emotional impact and it returns to a clear state. So you're impacted, you express the impact, and because you've expressed it, your body has cleared that experience and you return to that clear state. This is the healthy cycle of emotions here. Now, what happens often is that we as women get caught, and we as all people truly get caught in the cycle of emotional blocks. So, similar to the healthy cycle, something happens out there. Let's use a example that's challenging this time. So something happens out there. Your your best friend and your ex-boyfriend hook up. Something happens out there and she tells you. Your body takes it in and is impacted. Your body suddenly goes fiery hot on the inside and then ice cold. In the cycle of emotional blocks, this is a key piece here. For whatever reason, you or your body decide that it's not safe enough to let the natural response out. Now, what I want to emphasize here is you could be totally legit in your body's or your mind's reasoning that it's not safe. Like it could genuinely not be safe to share your emotional response. But oftentimes it would be safe, but your body, your system either doesn't feel comfortable, doesn't feel practiced in sharing the response, or socially, you've been taught that it's unacceptable to share that response, aka you shouldn't cry here, or you shouldn't cry at all, you shouldn't cry in public, or it's rude to cry if somebody tells you something, you don't want to make them feel bad. There's so many reasons that you, like your mind or your body, decide that it's not safe enough to let your natural response out. The issue with this piece is that then your body stores the emotional response, waiting for a time to be expressed. And the issue here is that emotional buildup occurs. So, like, if you think about your body being like a stream, or like your inner world, your energy being like a stream, if you have like a couple of sticks and leaves that fall in, aka like some unexpressed emotion that falls in, it's not a big deal, right? Like the stream can still kind of flow on its own. The problem occurs when there are years, and for most of us, decades of unexpressed emotional responses. That would be like years of twigs, of sticks, of leaves, of grime falling into the stream. That stream gets blocked, right? So that's when emotional buildup occurs. And emotional buildup causes excess cortisol, chronic tension and pain, imbalanced hormones, skin problems, gut issues. That imbalanced hormones, that's going to be period pain, menopausal challenge, excess weight, addiction, feeling stuck, low libido, lack of motivation. I could literally go on for probably 10 minutes describing all of the things that can result from these emotional blocks. And the cycle will just continue until we can interrupt these two pieces. And that's what we really are going to get into today in the Radiant Body. Now, the Radiant Body Blueprint, ladies, this is like the, what is it, the holy grail. Like these are the golden keys of getting out of this cycle of emotional blocks. And this is what I teach my one-on-one clients, but this is also what we start to really become experts at in Radiance Revealed. So the Radiant Body Blueprint is first and foremost regulation, right? So if we go back to the cycle of emotional blocks, your body decides it's not safe enough, aka your body is dysregulated. And so first and foremost, we need to be able to regulate our nervous systems. If our nervous system is unregulated, it will never feel safe to emotionally express. So number one in the Radiant Body Blueprint is regulation. Number two is sensitization. We need to be able to sense the inner world. We need to be able to sense the feelings and sensations that our body is giving us, or that our body is currently holding, so that we can actually work with them, right? If we're numb, which I will note too is a sensation. If at any point I ask you, what are you feeling? And you say, I don't know, Ellie, I don't really feel anything. I feel numb. Numbness is a sensation, but we need to be sensitized enough to our inner world to find those sensations in our bodies, to start connecting and working with them. So the Radiant Body Blueprint, number one, regulation. Number two, sensitization. Number three, we must know the language of the body. We're going to get into this even deeper in this next two slides. But this is such a bit, honestly, for intelligent women like all of us are, because intelligent women tend to use the language of the mind. I'm going to give you an example of this that was just so classic with one of my clients, but we need to know the language of the body to be able to work with the sensations of the body, right? We need to be able to speak that language instead of using different languages. So we need to learn the language of the body. And then the last piece in the Radiant Body Blueprint, we need to be able to express through the body. Now, where women get stuck, this is what I have gotten to see over these 3 years of one-on-one coaching, of running Radiance Revealed as a program, and of hosting retreats with women. And the beauty of this, ladies, is that I work with women from 24 years old to 75 years old, and it's always the same three things. So what you're experiencing, what any women next to you is experiencing, it's all the same thing. Women get stuck in one of three places, or all three of places. Number one is dysregulation. So again, that's why number one in the Radiant Body Blueprint is regulation. Women get stuck in dysregulation, and this means they're stuck in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. We're all familiar with these F words. Lord knows what F word will be added next to these states. But these are the states of a dysregulated nervous system. So let's just use the example of like being in a partnership with a romantic partner. If you're dysregulated and there's conflict, you might fight, which is literally the fight, right? You're getting in fights all the time and you're not being able to make any forward progress because you're just constantly fighting poorly. Flight, this is what I was experiencing for the long time. Flight is like, I'm out of here, right? Conflict arises and you just dip, right? That would be considered like avoidant attachment. Freeze is like you're numb, you're dissociated, you're kind of just like floating through conflicting relationships. This one would relate more to anxious attachment, right? You're just like stuck there and you're like, oh God, this is maybe not good, but I don't really know what to do. Or you're in fawn, and that would be like people pleasing. So you're just kind of letting your needs, your desires, or your boundaries go, and you're fawning, you're just pleasing the partner to try to avoid conflict. So that is number one where women get stuck, is in dysregulation in any four of those places. And that's why, again, the number one step in the Radiant Body Blueprint, again, we go much deeper in Radiance Revealed, but it's being able to regulate the system. That is number one. Number two, women get stuck in the mind. So they use the language of the mind instead of the language of the body. When I say the language of the mind, I mean this. Recently, I was in a one-on-one session with a client, and she had regulated herself. She was sensitized to her body. We were talking about a sisterhood wound that she had experienced. And we're trying to move this emotional block. I said, girl, all right, where you feel it? Where's it at? And she goes, oh, Ellie, it's in my throat. I feel it in my throat. And I was like, good, yes, she found it. Now, what does it feel like in your throat? And she said, Ellie, it feels awkward. It feels like I don't want to talk to this woman about this problem. Can you see or can you hear how she uses and is using the language of the mind instead of the language of the body? So she's saying, Ellie, it feels awkward. It feels like I don't blah, 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 blah. And she starts telling me a story essentially of, I don't want to talk to her about it. That's the language of the mind. And if we're speaking the language of the mind, we can only work in the mind. We can only work in the mindset. And unfortunately, as we will learn in the next slide, that's not a super effective place to be. So we'll get a little deeper into that. But that's number two. Women get stuck in the mind, using the language of the mind instead of the language of the body. And then number three, this one's such a killer. It gets stuck in the throat. So the expression it's found, the sensitization is there. They've used the language of the body to describe it. But when I say, all right, now let it rip, let it out, what does it sound like? They say, Ellie, I can't. The expression gets stuck on its way out. So these three places are three places that we get to address together in Radiance Revealed. But also, obviously, we'll learn a little bit more about this in this masterclass. And the tool that we'll be implementing here at the end is going to be super helpful for especially number one and number three here. So we were just talking about Number two, right there, right? The mind. They get stuck in the mind. They're using the language of the mind instead of the language of the body. We need to learn the language of the body, right? Because usually we're not taught this. Now, this piece here is what I want to know first. Work in the mind, pardon me, work in the body will transform the mind. Work in the mind will chip slowly at the body. And this is because the body mind, we all know they're connected, right? We all know they're talking to each other. The incredible thing, though, is that of that communication, 80% of the communication is going body to mind. Only 20% of the communication is going mind to body. So you can see how if we work in the body, if we work in the 80%, that will transform the mind immediately, drastically. But if we work in the mind, only 20% of communication is even happening from the mind. So if we work only in the mind, that's just going to be such a slow process. And that's really what I saw in these older women, especially in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, not that 40s young as fuck, but in these, adult women, they were all only taught skills and practices that were working from the mind down. And that's why I saw them experiencing slow progress. That was just honestly fucking disappointing. So, ladies, these are examples of the language of the body. This is the language that we need to become familiar with. Now, these three lists could be fucking infinite. They could be so much longer than this, but these are just some examples. So, when you're working in the body, you want to find a sensation, right? So, if you're in a one on one session and we're like, oh, okay, we're working with the pain of your parents' divorce. Now we're gonna obviously I would bring you in with some hypnotic techniques, would regulate your nervous system, but then you might be like, wow, Ellie, there's a sensation in my right shoulder. And I would say, cool, what's that sensation like? And you might be like, well, it's dull, but it's pulsing. It's a dull pulsing sensation. Or with a heartbreak, maybe you're like, Ellie, it's in my chest, it's my heart, it's a sharp, crushing sensation. So you can see how this language, being able to describe the texture, the behavior, the quality of a sensation in your body, that's what allows you to connect with those sensations and start to work with them. So I just want to take a pause here, ladies, for a second. Check in with y'all. How we doing? We're learning a lot here. Grab a drink of water if you can. And then I'm just gonna have us do a little activity here. And to do this activity, you're just gonna, again, get yourself settled in any other way in your posture. So just noticing how your body will start to adjust itself pretty naturally here, right? Like you really don't even have to think about how you or your body will start kind of adjusting through the shoulders and the shoulder blades and how it just kind of starts to rest its arms comfortably. I'm just noticing how these adjustments really start to happen on their own. Just letting you arrive a little bit more comfortably where you are. And then if you feel all right with it, just letting your eyes settle down, your eyelids softening out just a bit. And taking a few comfortable breaths. Noticing how your forehead is smoothing out. And down the bridge of your nose, out across your cheeks are softening. Your shoulders are settling and your chest is relaxed. Down through your belly, through your hips and legs. Even your hands and feet are a little bit softer. We'll take one more big breath in like this together. And through the mouth, exhale. And then stay right here with your eyes softened down. And we're just going to ask your body with just grace and love and respect, if your body could just show you a new sensation somewhere. And you don't have to think about it too much. Don't try too hard. Just noticing where that new sensation is arising. Just locating it. And again, if it's numbness, if you don't feel anything, then just rock with the numbness. That's okay too. And then just for a moment, for a couple of breaths, just seeing how you might describe that sensation in the language of the body. Things like, does it feel soft, rigid, hard, bright, sharp, tingling, warm? And take another breath or two with this sensation. And then, ladies, I'm just going to have you pop in the chat again and put in there where you felt the sensation and describe it in a couple of words. Excusez-moi. For me, it was like my left hip, and it was kind of like tension, rubby, scrapey vibes. Cool. Corin in her thighs, bright, cold, tingling. Amy felt it in my fingers, stuck, tense. Mid back for Jay, subtle, rigid, dull clenching. Yes. Jill in my legs. Amanda, heavy pushing in the hips. Chest, warm but tight. Jenna, gut, tight, hard. Ooh, Cass, red, orange color. Love that. Being able to describe a color to it. Beautiful. Glutes, tight sensation. Here above the heart, soft and pulsing. I swear it was different than my heartbeat. Totally. I love that. Beautiful, ladies. So good. Yes. So that was a beautiful practice. So simple, right? But just a way to get into the body and describe it in the language of the body. We just got a bit longer of click to exit full screen. Yes, yes, yes. All right, ladies. So this is a practice that you just did. Very good job being able to practice the language of the body, right? Using these words to be able to engage with the language of the body. Now, as I said, what I really want to communicate with you guys is that these tools, this key of using the body, using the language of the body for growth, for healing, for expansion on every level, it truly gets to happen on every level. Because again, remember, the body mind connection, the body is talking 80% of the time. So if we can work through the body, we're fucking winning. We're making huge steps. And how I'm going to describe or give examples of this is describing what we use in Radiance Revealed. So for the ladies, I know some of you who have, so we've run 3 rounds of Radiance Revealed already, technically 4 with the beta. Oopsies, what is that? Okay, we're just gonna maybe ignore that ugly little thing. What? Let's see. Strange. Okay. We've run 4 rounds of Radiance Revealed, and for some of you, y'all were super excited to either run it again. I have a couple of you in here that have done it several times, or that who were super excited for it last year. And just like a note, we didn't run it at all last year, which was wild, but also amazing because this upcoming round that starts on January 10th is going to be literally transformed because this new key has been fully implemented in the process and in the program itself throughout the 7 weeks. So, how we use the body on every level in Radiance Revealed, in the physical level of the body, we work with intuitive eating. I literally tell clients who are wanting to work with me, like, if you're not willing to eat differently, I literally can't help you. Like, intuitive eating is such a central piece of physical healing and being able to connect with the body as a tool and in general. So on that first week, we work intuitive eating and we work posture. Posture is huge, ladies. You'll notice that in your life, as you become more confident, more embodied, more full of your own authentic self, your posture will change. It will become more strong, more powerful, more true. And if you're in times of challenge, you'll probably notice that your posture changes, closes, becomes tighter, smaller. And so we work with posture in Radiance Revealed as a healing modality, really. On the mental level of the body, we're going to go through systematic body relaxation in Radiance Revealed. systematic body relaxation to me is the key piece of meditation that most often gets missed when people are learning. And yet, to me, it is the piece that makes meditation actually work is systematic body relaxation. So we get to go through that in the mental level in that week 2 of Radiance Revealed. Week 3 is honestly my favorite because the tool we get into is sounding. Sounding as a tool, it works in, let's go back to this. It works sounding in regulation and in expression through the body, right? It helps your emotions to not get stuck in your throat. And sounding as a tool is what has allowed me to continue to have massive emotional releases similar to that first one I had in that breathwork experience, the little kid cry. Sounding has been the tool that has allowed me to have little kid cries about different quote unquote traumatic experiences in my life. The beauty of sounding as a tool that I will teach you in Radiance Revealed is that you might not have those experiences, those little kid cry moments in the sessions, but your body will start to learn that it's safe to express these experiences and these emotions. So honestly, the place that I most often have my biggest emotional releases is in my car because it's like contained, it's safe, it's just me. The most recent one I had was this crazy release of getting in a car accident when I was 13 that totally wrecked my back and caused chronic pain for like 10 years. Posture work also really healed my chronic pain. I'm excited to share some of that with you for those of you that do struggle with chronic pain. But anyways, the emotional week is one of my favorites. The energetic week of Radiance Revealed, we get into core strength with Kundalini Yoga. I know a lot of us want stronger bodies and a lot of us want stronger cores because we know that the core is central to the strength of the rest of the body, right? All of our movement comes from our core and also our energetic center, our center of gravity is right at that navel point. And I always was like putting on all of my New Year's resolutions, like this is the year that I will have the strongest core of my life. And it never fucking happened because honestly, I hate going into the gym. I hate the inside of gyms. And only when I found Kundalini Yoga, aka sitting on my ass and doing a couple of really simple breathing movements, I have the strongest, most toned core of my life after doing Kundalini consistently for about a year now. And so I'm super excited to teach you guys the fundamental, easy ass pieces of Kundalini to give you guys the strongest core of your life. And then the last week of Radiance Revealed, it's the spiritual week, the spiritual level. And we use the body to access the spiritual, specifically for women, through what I call organic feminine movement. And this is a style, I suppose, of dance that really taps your body's movement to your essence, to your feminine spirit. It's an incredible week. It's what's allowed me to come into deep connection with my sensuality and not sexuality, but with my sensual, feminine, radiant energy. It's these practices that I'll be teaching in Radiance Revealed in that last week. Because I know a lot of you on here were parts of that group that a year and a half ago were really wanting to get into the next round. I've included the details. So we'll just hit these briefly before we close with our tool that you get to use right away. So the general Radiance Revealed program or package, we get weekly group sessions. Those are recorded 7 weeks. You get the Radiance Revealed vault, and that is this fat vault of pre-recorded videos, modules, teachings, classes, recipes that just assist in that expression of the radiance, in the connection to the body. This is juicy as fuck, and the sooner you sign up for Radiance Revealed, the sooner you get access to that vault, which is the best. We have weekly challenges, which I'm so excited to implement in this time. And if you complete the weekly challenges, you get a gift box at the end. I'm so excited for it. Of course, you've got the accountability group chat. That for me, like I've spent tens of thousands of dollars at this point in different programs, and the best ones always include accountability in some capacity. So that's why we've got the group chat. And then if you don't already have it, Eternally Vibrant is my intuitive eating program. I literally have the best testimonials ever for that program. I can send them to you if you like, but if you haven't already gotten it, you get discounted access to it. One of my favorite things that a woman said was that in 3 days of binging it, because you can literally watch all of Eternally Vibrant in a day. Within 3 days, all of the redness in her skin was gone and her skin was totally clear for the first time in what she said 15 years. It was fucking amazing. The price for the general package of Radiance Revealed is $697 or a 3-month payment plan, which splits out to like $233 or something like that. This price is about $100 more than the first course I ever bought into. What I really want for you guys is not to have this be like the only course you ever need, and then you'll never have to go through another course again. The best thing that that first course I ever bought gave me was the confidence to continue investing in myself, to continue being like, wow, I invested that and I was okay. I still was able to pay all my shit and it was fucking so worth it. So that's really what I'm excited for some of you, if you haven't invested in yourself yet, for you guys to have that experience if you choose. And then the VIP, of course, you get everything that I just described, plus 4 one-on-one coaching sessions. You get an integration group call as well, just for like smooth integration of the entire experience, more accountability. This piece, though, is really the kicker. Not to be like tooting my horn or like blah, 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 I'm so valuable, but like 4 one-on-one coaching sessions with me is a $666 value when you break it down from my package price. This is for people who are ready for massive transformation, and that's absolutely guaranteed because the tools that we're using in these one-on-ones are the same tools that have women coming back to me a year and a half later, 2 years later, like truly still raving about the results that they're still experiencing from these one-on-ones. I priced this at $1,000 for a very specific reason. Obviously, you can do the 3-month payment plan at $333, but I priced it at $1,000 because for me, I just recently, invested my first $3,000 in a coaching program. I paid that in a lump sum, and doing that alone, just being on that sales call with my current business coach and paying $3,000 on the call, aside from all of the coaching I've gotten from her, which has been fucking huge, just investing $3,000 in myself has been one of the most transformational things that I've done because I got to show myself like I am worth that. I am worth that. The one piece I want to note too on that call, the most soothing thing that I got from my business coach on that call, because at this time, I was like, girl, can I just tell you that I'm nervous as fuck? Because 2 months ago, I signed up for a course with a different mentor that was $2,800 and I'm paying it on a payment plan. So, like, I was paying like $750 or something like that monthly for 4 months. And I was 2 months into it. And I was like, girl, the idea of giving you $3,000 and like seriously chunking out my bank account, knowing that I have all these payments coming up, scares the shit out of me. And she goes, Ellie, I totally get it. But remember, spending money feels unsafe, but it's actually not. It's uncomfortable. Spending money isn't unsafe. It's actually just uncomfortable. And just her saying that alone was enough for me to be like, wow, you're so fucking right. This isn't actually unsafe. This is just scary. Right. And so I just really appreciate that from Sophia, my business coach. And it's something that I wanted to give to you guys as well. That being said, I think that is all for yep, that's all I have on my slides. So we get in now to the tool that you get to implement right away. And I want to whatever. I'm just gonna keep talking here in the spotlight, whatever. Okay. So the one tool that I want to give, I found it. There we go. The one tool that I want to give you guys, I want to look at all of you. If you have your camera off, that's totally fine, but I would love to see you for this. This is the tool that I start Radiance Revealed with always. And it is called the 3 magical sighs. Now, we go way deeper into this in the program. We go into the connection between the throat and another very important spot in the feminine body. But the beauty of the 3 magical sighs is that it hits two different places in the radiant body blueprint. It hits regulation and it hits expressing through the body. So this is going to help us with the tendency for emotional expression to get stuck in the throat as women. The three magical sighs is very simple. It's a breath in and an audible ha. What I find so interesting is whenever I teach this to women, I demo it, and the first thing they do is that the emotional expression, that's the sound getting stuck in the throat. That's women being like, I can't make the sound. And so this tool, when done with consistency, is going to retrain the body on a social level, right? Because a lot of that cloistered throat comes from societal impact. It's going to retrain the body on that social level that this is a socially acceptable thing to do. It's a good thing to do. And it's also going to literally soothe the nervous system. It's going to soothe the tissues and the tendons here in the throat. We're going to do this twice. I demoed it already, so you kind of understand it. Obviously, the three magical sighs, we'll do it 3 times. So again, get yourself situated in any new ways that you need to. Nice and comfy, nice and comfortable in your spine. We'll take a normal breath in and then exhale all the air. Come to the very bottom. Big breath in. Open mouth, exhale. Twice more like that. Big breath in. Open mouth. Last one here. Big breath in. Release. And just take a couple of quiet moments here. You might notice how you feel. You might not. That's okay too. Ladies, we're going to use this tool one more time together before we close. This time, I want you to think about bringing the sound as far on the exhale as you can go. It's probably the sound is going to get less smooth and nice, and it's probably going to start to get a little bit more gravelly or a little bit more strange sounding. That's perfect. Okay. So again, we'll take a normal breath in. Normal breath out, squeeze out all the air. Soften the shoulders at the bottom. And a big breath in. Audible exhale. More like that. Push it all the way out. Big breath in. As far as you can. So good, ladies. Last time here. Big breath in. Audible exhale. If it feels all right, let your eyes soften down here for a moment. Feel your forehead smooth, your shoulders relax. Chin just subtly tucked towards your chest, so subtle. If I was with you, I might not even notice that you moved at all. Feeling your hips pressing into the seat beneath you, your feet down into the floor. And just thanking you, your mind, and especially your body for being present here today, for working with this key today, this feminine key to growth in every area you desire. Take one more breath here. The exhale to just weave this experience into your system, into your body. Leaving you with the blessing of health and prosperity for you and all those that you love, all those that you touch. May this time and this experience benefit you in the most ideal ways. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much, ladies, for spending this time with me. I have absolutely loved every second of it. You'll be getting an email with the recording. You'll get to rewatch it again if you choose. And know that also, I forgot to say this, but you will be getting a discount code for those of you who know that you're interested in Radiance Revealed. I know that some of you have been like, harking me on it. So you will get a discount code for being present here on the Radiant Body for this upcoming round. I'm so thankful for all of you. All of y'all. You're free to unmute. Let me turn off the recording here. Come on, baby.